Hi everyone, this is Miss Michaela, and in this video I will be reading you the chapter Moscow and the chapter The Sheep. So my father was not a hero. Is everything alright, Margie? Yeah, sure. If only he had been in prison. They cut off my dad's leg, but he still didn't confess, so they cut off an arm as well. Too much. So she's lying to her friends about her dad because she wishes that he was a hero who had been to prison. Luckily, one day they told me about my uncle Anoush, the only one of my father's brothers I had never met, because he had been in prison. And now, for the first time in 30 years, my grandma was reunited with her 6 children. And I had a hero in my family. Naturally, I loved him immediately. Why don't you come and live with us? Such a sweet child. I'll sleep here tonight and tell you stories. Are you married? Do you have children? How old are you? Later, Margie, later. So Margie's very excited to have him in her life because he is a hero, like Laylee's father. Don't bother him too much, he's tired. Good night. Don't worry, we're fine. Okay, here goes. I was 18 years old when my uncle Feridun and his friends proclaimed the independence of the Iranian province of Azerbaijan. Wow. Feridun elected himself Minister of Justice of this new little republic. Gentlemen, justice is the basis of democracy. All men should be equal in the eyes of the law. My ideas were the same as his, but your grandfather remained faithful to the Shah. My son, a traitor, go away and join up with my idiotic brother. You'll both end up being executed. Do you hear me? Executed. I became Feridun's secretary. It was a time of dreams and enthusiasm. Azerbaijan is only the beginning. We are going to free Iran province by province. I'm certain you're right, Uncle. So Anoush and his uncle Feridun worked together to make the province of Azerbaijan free from the Shah, and then they planned to go to each province and remove them from the rule of the Shah. One night I had a terrible nightmare. Dead people, blood. The next morning I was so tormented I had to see Feridun. Shit, the Shah's soldiers. So he goes to see his uncle, and there's all of these soldiers surrounding his house. Good God, Feridun, he says. I wanted to do something, but there was nothing I could do. They arrested him and I ran away. Margie thinks, what a story. For days and days I walked through the falling snow. I crossed the Alborz Mountains to find refuge at my parents' house in Astara. I was hungry, I was cold, but I continued. I was nearly dead when I arrived. So he ran away because he knew that the Shah's soldiers would kill him too if they saw him there. Oh my God, Anoush. What's going on? Who's bothering us at this hour? Come quickly, it's our son Anoush. He has fainted. What is he doing here? Why didn't he stay with his nice uncle? You always say the right thing at the right time. Help me now. Okay, calm down. Oh my God, my son, my dear son. It's a bit late to show your affection. But the Shah's police were looking for me. I was not safe with my parents, so I decided to go into exile. So the Shah does not like Anoush because he was trying to free the people from the Shah. So the soldiers are trying to find him and arrest him. So he had to leave his parents' house and go into exile. I swam across the Aras River and arrived in the USSR, so that's Russia. So he swam across the river to get to Russia. Holy smoke, Laylee's dad hasn't even been to the USSR. What happened to your uncle Feridun? He met his destiny. I learned that he knew the Shah's army was coming to arrest him. He could have run away like most of his friends did, but he decided to stay. All is lost. I am at your mercy, gentlemen. At the time, he had a girlfriend who was involved in his political movement, a girl from a good family. Feridun, you have a visitor. My love. My darling, you shouldn't have come. You are making it worse for yourself. Let's make a child, she says. Here, right now? Yes, I paid the guard. He won't bother us. I am going to be executed tomorrow. I know I want a living memory of you, she says. You know what it's like to be an unmarried mother in this country. You will be shunned. Life will be hell. I don't care, she says. Let's make a child. She became pregnant that very night and left for Switzerland soon after. I know that she had a son. I heard he looks a lot like his father. So, Faridun was executed, but his girlfriend had a baby who looks a lot like Faridun. Are you all right? Anush asks. Do you have other stories like that? Yes. I'll make you a hot chocolate. So Margie clearly looks overwhelmed by this story, but she's still very interested. And you, what did you do in the USSR? First, I went to Leningrad, then to Moscow, where I became a student. I have a doctorate in Marxism-Leninism. Dialectic materialism? She asks. What? You know about that? I read the comic book version. Later, I married and had 2 children, 2 girls. Look. Why doesn't the lady have a head? Her head's all scratched out here. She was my wife. We are divorced. Okay, but why is her head scratched out? Russians aren't like us. What, they don't have heads? It's hearts they don't have. They don't know how to love. After the separation, I felt very lonely. I missed my country, my parents, my brothers. I dreamt about them often. I decided to go home. I got a false passport and disguised myself. I guess I wasn't very convincing. They soon recognized me. Hey, you with the beard and sunglasses, halt. They put me in prison for 9 years. 9 years? Better than Layli's father. They say you were tortured terribly, like Siamak, Layli's father. Your father told you that? No, he told it to Mom and I heard him. What my wife made me suffer was much worse. So he went through all of that terrible torture in prison, and what happened with his wife, he says, hurt him more than everything in prison. I tell you all this because it's important that you know. Our family memory must not be lost, even if it's not easy for you, even if you don't understand it at all. Don't worry, I'll never forget, she says. And now it's time for bed. What? The story's finished? Here, take this swan I made in prison, out of bread. In prison? Pleasant dreams. There are lots of heroes in my family. My grandpa was in prison, my uncle Anush too, for 9 years. He was even in the USSR. My great-uncle Faridun proclaimed a democratic state, and he was... And then her friend thinks again, too much. So now she's bragging to her friend about Faridun and Anush and her grandpa. Alright, the sheep. During the time Anush stayed with us, I heard political discussions of the highest order. It's incredible. The revolution is a leftist revolution, and the republic wants to be called Islamic. It's not important. Everything will turn out fine. In a country where half the population is illiterate, you cannot unite the people around Marx. The only thing that can really unite them is nationalism or religious ethic. So he's saying that because so many people are illiterate in Iran, they won't unite around Marx because they can't read about him like Anush can. But the religious leaders don't know how to govern. They will return to their mosques. The proletariat shall rule. It's inevitable. That's just what Lenin explained in The State and the Revolution. Sometimes I even told them my opinion. On TV, they say that 99.99% of the population voted for the Islamic Republic. Do you hear that, Anush? Do you realize how ignorant our people are? The elections were faked, and they believe the results. 99.99%. As for me, I don't know a single person who voted for the Islamic Republic. Where did that figure come from? From their asses, that's where. So he's talking about here, on the TV, they said that the results of the election were 99.99%, and that is impossible. That would mean that if there was 1 million people in the population, everybody except one person voted for the Islamic Republic. So he's saying that these results are fake and that the Islamic Republic made them up. But it's not my fault, it's the TV. And Anoush says, calm down, Nebby, she's just a child who repeats what she hears. Hey, want to play? He's going to the United States. To the United States? Why? My parents say it's impossible to live under an Islamic regime. It's better to leave. But the religious leaders are very stupid. They won't last. Yeah. My dad says nobody realizes the danger. So when are you leaving? In about a month. Oh, I think I really liked this boy. But the United States is terrific. You'll finally see Bruce Lee in person. Yeah, that would be nice. Bruce Lee is dead. Actually, I liked him very, very much. It was the end of the world. So one of Margie's friends is leaving to go to the United States because his parents think that it will be too dangerous under the Islamic regime once they take power. After my friend's departure, a good part of my family also left the country. Now boarding Flight 6702 to Los Angeles, Gate 26. Now boarding Flight 6702 to Los Angeles, Gate 26. So now her family is leaving too. Maybe we should leave too, Margie's mom says. So that I can become a taxi driver and you a cleaning lady? My friend Kaveh left for the United States too. Don't worry, everyone who left will come back. They're just afraid of change. Let's hope so. So Margie's parents and Margie are not leaving because they think that everyone who is leaving is going to come back, but they're just afraid of change. Margie's mom says, I'm really frightened, Anoush. And he says, don't be, Taji. It's like this with all revolutions. This is just a transitional period. So he's saying whenever there's a change in power in the government, it's always chaotic and a difficult time, but it's just a transition and it will get better. And then the phone rings and Margie says, Dad, it's for you. What? What's going on? What is it? Dad, your mother died? It's Mosin. What? He's been found, dead, drowned. Where? In his bathtub. So Mosin was one of the heroes that had been let out of prison that Margie knew. And Margie's mom yells, murderers, murderers. My mother was right to believe it was murder. When they found his body, only his head was underwater. Everything will be all right, Anoush says. So Mosin was murdered, probably by the Islamic regime, because he was a revolutionary, so they're worried that he's going to cause trouble with them coming to power, so they murdered him. After Mosin, it was Siamak's turn, who is Layli's father, if you remember. Is this Siamak Jari's house? Yes. We are the deliverers of divine justice. His sister was executed in his place. So he wasn't home, but his sister was, so they killed her instead. Do you know where Siamak and his family are now? No, more than you do, but they must surely have hidden somewhere. And Layli? Later on, we learned they crossed the border hidden among a flock of sheep, so they escaped to another country. Everything will be all right, Anoush says. And that is how all the former revolutionaries became sworn enemies of the Republic. So the Islamic Republic is killing all the revolutionaries because they're worried that they're going to cause problems. Wasn't Anoush going to pick me up? What, wasn't he supposed to come? Well, yes. He went back to Moscow. What? Oh no, that old tale about being on a trip had come back. He had to leave quickly. His wife called him. He asked me to tell you goodbye. He doesn't even talk to his wife. Darling, did you have a good day at school? You must be hungry. Where is Anoush? Don't you want to eat a little? I'm not hungry. Why didn't he stay to say goodbye to me? He was in a hurry, a big hurry. I think we need to talk. God, don't let him be dead. The truth is they've arrested Anoush. I know. Daddy, yes, my baby. Do you want to do something for him? Yes. Anoush has the right to only one visitor, and it's you he wants to see. And she's looking in the mirror. Do you think I'm dressed nicely enough? Of course. We're almost there. So she's going to visit her Uncle Anoush in prison. What a beautiful dress. What a beautiful girl. 10 minutes. You know you have honored me with your visit. You are the little girl I always wanted to have. But you'll see, one day the proletariat will rule. Here, I made you another bread swan. It's the uncle of the first one. And he hugs her and says, "Star of my life." That was the last meeting with my beloved Anoush. And then here's a newspaper that says Russian spy executed. Now, Anoush wasn't actually a Russian spy because he only lived in Russia for a few years. This was just published in a newspaper because the Islamic regime didn't want people to know that they were killing all of the revolutionaries. Everything will be all right. And then God comes and says, "Margie, what seems to be the problem?" "Shut up, you. Get out of my life. I never want to see you again. Get out." And so I was lost, without any bearings. What could be worse than that? "Margie, run to the basement. We're being bombed." It was the beginning of the war.